Greetings everyone, my name is Dr. Jason Freeman. I'd like to welcome y'all to my channel. So, on Tuesday I gave my immediate reaction to seeing James Gunn's Superman. Thanks for the love, by the way. However, I wanted to give a more detailed review in advance to its official premiere this Friday, July 11th. Basically, I want to say what I like about the film, I want to say what I don't like about the film, then I want to say who I think will enjoy the film and who I think won't. Looking at you, Snyder Bros. So let's get to it. And as the title suggests, there will be absolutely no spoilers. Like none. None. I hate spoilers. The first thing I love about this movie is that it's an unapologetic, authentic comic book movie. So when you read a comic book, there's always that possibility that you're going to see something absolutely outlandish. Like a super intelligent chimpanzee that after it gets doused with radiation is now a giant ape that shoots kryptonite lasers out of his eyes. Or a guy who looks like a penguin who attacks Gotham City's children using a flock of birds. Or Superman fighting a giant spider because...
well, they're the fiercest killers in the insect kingdom.
And that's the world that James Gunn has created with his first film of the DCU. You have a giant kaiju. You have people flying around in flying saucers. You have multiple guys who can shoot laser out of their eyes. And this is just a normal day in Metropolis. And I love this because it opens up so many possibilities for stories that we haven't had with the DCEU. While there were aliens and there were metahumans, there are clear limits that Snyder put on his story. So certain things that you just weren't going to see in the DCEU. For example, according to Jason Momoa, Snyder said that there was going to be no Lobo in the DCEU.
Well, I originally thought I was going to be playing Lobo in the very beginning because I got called in. I auditioned for Batman and I almost didn't do it because I was like, this is silly. It's not going to be me. Why am I auditioning for Batman? Right. But it was just a run-of-the-mill audition. Right. And then I get called in right after, and Affleck gets announced. And I'm like, oh, of course I'm going to play the bad guy. Right. It's not too many guys that can kick the shit out of those two. Right, so I was like, yeah, I'll come in and beat him up and die like I do. Sure.
Good dyer.
Yeah, you're a good dyer. Anyways, I got called in the office, and I was just like, well, do you know who you're going to play? And I'm like, yeah, Lobo. Yeah. Of course. He's the only one that can fight Batman and Superman. He's like, what? Lobo? I'm like, no, he's not in this universe. I was like, what? What the hell am I supposed to play?
Oh, that's funny.
And man, I wish he would have taped it because he was like, Aquaman. I'm like,
me?
The f are you talking about?
And so the assumption is that he didn't really fit into the more grounded elements that Snyder was looking to include in the DCEU. And so if Lobo doesn't fit, certainly Crypto doesn't fit. The second thing I loved about James Gunn's Superman is that it was really, really funny. While it's not a straight comedy, there's a lot of jokes in the film that really do land. Now some don't, and we'll get to that later. And my favorite comedic moments actually came from the Justice Gang. Guy Gardner's funny, but in a very natural way. He's not, I would say he's not pushing it too hard. It's just how he is. You just laugh at the stuff he says and the stuff that he does. He's really unhinged. There's one moment in particular where he's talking to Lois Lane that everybody in the movie theater just busted out laughing based on what he did. I ain't gonna say it. I want you to see the film, to see it for yourself, but that dude's crazy. Mr. Terrific is funny too in his own way. A lot of very dry humor. He's very kind of straight-faced and kind of straight-laced. But the way that he delivers lines, the things that he says, the things that he does are also really funny. He kind of just says things in passing and you kind of like, wait, what did he just say? So I love Mr. Terrific. I know some people say he's kind of the breakout star of the film. I wouldn't go that far, but I did enjoy what he brought to the table and how he was portrayed in the film.
Quit messing around.
I'm not messing around. I'm doing important stuff.
And Hawk Girl's attack is just hilarious. I mean, when she attacks, you'll see. The third thing I love about the film is that it's filled with likable and relatable characters. One of my big gripes with films is when you have these characters that you're supposed to care about, that you're following throughout the film, and the film really does nothing to make you care about them at all. In fact, it may actually make you want to root against them so that they won't make it through, and that's terrible. So for me, this film has a lot of characters that you see their background, you see their humanity, even if they're not human, and you're rooting for them from the beginning. This is a very character-driven human movie. I mean, it's strange to say it about a expensive, big spectacle superhero movie, but at the end of the day, it really comes down to the humanity of all the characters, as well as the relationships that they have with each other. And I'll use this time to focus in on the two main characters, Superman and Lois. Now, the thing about Superman is that he's very much of a human character. Of course, he has Superman's powers, but he's a person. He's a human being who just happens to be an alien from Krypton. And Lois Lane very much is very human as well, and she has her own personality, her own characteristics. She's not there just to be a side character for Superman. And I really love their connection. They're very different individuals, and I think that's great. And so I think their differences, which you see some of it in the trailers, their differences really cause a clash, but also causes them to really connect. Because despite their differences, they still genuinely love each other. And Corenswet and Brosnahan have real chemistry. They, really, convince the audience that they really care about each other. I hope you're enjoying the video, but I just wanted to quickly mention that if you're enjoying what you're seeing from the DCU or DC Comics in general, why not buy a Funko Pop of your favorite DC character? I have a few myself and will definitely be getting more. To get your own Funko Pop DC character, click on the link in the description. So, what don't I like about the film? Well, one of my biggest critiques of the film ironically comes from one of its greatest strengths. This film is authentically a comic book film. But with that comes the conceit that, just like in comic books, sometimes the enemy or the threat is dealt with way too quickly. And so when you have a comic book issue and you have the monster of the week or the villain of the moment, they pop in within an issue, they get defeated, and then they move on to the next one. Well, that very much happens in this film. There are threats that pop up and they're dealt with fairly quickly, almost routinely. And it really kills a lot of the tension because you know that they're going to deal with this quickly because that's who they are. And so, with these Snyder films, I kind of bring that back in. They felt like there were a little bit more stakes because it was more grounded and more kind of a darker tone. And so that's, one thing that had over maybe this version, but this version very much is a much more wider, much more vibrant world, but with that you lose some of the tension at various points with the bad guys. The second thing I didn't like about the film was that some of the dialogue and the lines from the characters was a bit stilted. In other words, there were moments where the language is very unnatural. They kind of came out of nowhere. So, for example, Luthor does this big speech, and the whole time I'm thinking, well, I can see this if this was a comic book page and he had this long speech, but in this moment, it just feels like he has memorized the speech and he's just saying it. You can see the emotion. I'm not criticizing Nicolas Hoult's acting, but it's very much the way it's written. He's just given this this kind of diatribe, and it just feels like it's not a natural thing that someone would say in that moment. And so there was that throughout the film. That again, there's these speeches and some of these dialogue that fit very much in a comic book, but didn't necessarily fit in a live-action movie. A third thing I didn't like about the film, which is actually a thing with a lot of James Gunn's films, is that he makes jokes go a long time sometimes. So, like too long sometimes. Like they'll do the joke and then they'll keep going and going and going. And so a good example of that, not in the James Gunn film, but from the Joker, the first Joker film with Joaquin Phoenix, is that there's this whole scene after he kills this guy, and then there's a whole thing about the shorter guy, the little person who can't get the door, and you're stuck in this moment, and it's very uncomfortable. Well, there were a couple of those in the film where it's not that dark, but it's just the joke starts and it keeps going and it keeps going, and it's like, okay, let's move on to something else. And so yeah, so that is one of my critiques. I like most of the jokes, especially from Guy Gardner and also from Mr. Terrific. But the jokes went a little bit long sometimes. And I'll go ahead and I'll critique Nicolas Hoult a little bit. I like him as an actor. He seems like a really smart, really great dude. I saw him on Michael Rosenbaum's YouTube, podcast, and great guy. My only thing is his version of Lex Luthor is a little bit too cartoonish for me. It's definitely better than Eisenberg from the DCEU, but it's definitely more in that territory than my favorite Lex Luthor, which is the one from Superman the Animated Series. That Luthor is smooth, he's calculating, he's smart, just like this Hoult's version is smart, but there is this kind of cunning and this smoothness and the sophistication that Luthor has in that version that's just not present in this particular version. This version is a bit manic, similar to the Eisenberg version, very impulsive, and so he is the super genius, potentially, if not the smartest person in the world, up there is one of the smartest people in the world. However, the issue is that he's very almost like impulsive, like a teenager, in his hatred for Superman, and I think that was a little over the top, and I wasn't a fan of that. I would love for him to kind of adapt more of the Superman animated series, the animated series version, much more smoother, in control, calculated, and cold. A deep down kind of psychotic character, not one that's very open and very out there. And my last critique of the film is that it was a lot darker than I anticipated at times. Now, James Gunn has a history of kind of dark humor and dark film, so I knew there's going to be some stuff in here. But there's one death in particular, which I'm not going to spoil, again, no spoilers, that really kind of took me out of it. So, Luthor, one of the things I like about Luthor, and also I think about Luthor, the Luthor comic, I think Luthor Man of Steel, something along those lines. That particular comic, Luthor, while he's a bad guy, and he's clearly a bad guy, you can see the reasoning behind it, and there's a little bit of sympathy in that you have this human faced off against this god, essentially, whose intentions we don't totally know, honestly. And so with that, Luthor has some sympathy, and you understand why he's doing what he's doing. This one is just a psycho, and he does certain things, again, very impulsively, that once he does it, in particular, there's one death that he causes, that any sympathy is gone. Like, this guy is not a sympathy. You don't root for Luthor at all. Which I get, like, Superman is a good guy, Luthor is a bad guy, but to me the best villains, like Thanos with the MCU, you understood him and you knew why he was doing what he did. And there was some, the idea that Thanos was right, I think, is fine. Like, I got that. But with this Luthor, he's so over the top and so villainous and so evil that's gone. So I understand that take on it. It wouldn't have been my take. I like the more sympathetic, the version that you understand a little bit better. And so that was one of my big critiques. I would have rather seen the animated series version than the one that we got in this film. Alright, so who should see this film and who should skip it? So, you should see this film if you love comic books. So of course I love the film. If you love comic books, if you love kind of the escapism and all of that, if you love these big, interesting ideas, these expanding worlds, these worlds that are different than ours, you'll love this film. It has all that. It's literally a comic book in live action. This is the closest thing that we've seen really since Guardians of the Galaxy. So in the same way that Guardians of the Galaxy and also the Suicide Squad are comic books brought to life, James Gunn has done it again with this movie. He's taken the Superman, he's taken these different characters, and he's brought them and put them on the big screen. So if you love that, if you love comic books, please watch this movie. Please support it because there'll be more. Watch this film if you like human-centered or character-driven films. This is very much that. It's very human stories within a big comic book world. And it's very similar to what we saw with Guardians of the Galaxy. It's similar to what we saw with the Suicide Squad, where James Gunn takes these characters and put them into this superhero world. So he does it again with Superman, with Mr. Terrific, and the rest of the Justice Gang, with Lois. I think he did a really good job with Lois. And there are some background characters that don't really get a lot of shine, but I think it's just because you have such a big story, and it is a Superman-centered story, that you can't put them all in there as much as you'd like. I'll talk more about that in my spoiler review, But if you love these kind of character-driven stories, you know, centered on an individual, in this case Kal-El, and Lois, I'll say Lois is centered on her as well, then you'll love this. You'll love this film. You should skip this film if you only like the Snyder version of Superman. Now, I'm on the record. I have videos where I do say I like the Man of Steel. So you can like Man of Steel and like this film. I feel like this film is far superior because it's much more of a broader world, a bigger world, and this Superman is much more of a developed, sympathetic character. Now, Cavill's Superman did have some personality, but not anywhere close to what Corenswet's Superman had. In many ways, Cavill's Superman is much more similar to Mr. Terrific with his kind of more dry humor, but Superman Cavill's didn't really have humor, so he just had this dry personality. And so yeah, so if you only like the Snyder version, or if you want, you know, I just bring back the Snyderverse, this is not the film for you. This is a comic book. It's a comic book on film, and if you're not into that, then this isn't your film. And lastly, and this is kind of the part I'm not 100% sure about, because it kind of depends on the person. So as I mentioned, Gunn has a bit of a dark sense of humor. And so if you're not into that, and you see it very much in his other movies. So if you've seen his other movies and they turn you off in their darkness, this isn't going to make you like it anymore. He really goes places that I didn't expect with this particular film. And so it's not gory or anything, it's just dark at points. And so if you're not into that, this is not the film for you. That being said, I think this is going to get a good audience. I think there are a lot of people going to like this film, but it's not for everybody. But I think this is one of the better superhero films that I've seen. I don't put it up there with Black Panther. That's my favorite. I don't put it up there with Winter Soldier. I think that's one of the great ones as well. Or The Dark Knight, with its kind of morality and playing with that as well. Especially, you know, basically, the Joker in The Dark Knight is far superior to this Lex Luthor. That being said, I think it's up there with other really good superhero films. It's up there with Wonder Woman. It's up there with the Suicide Squad, the James Gunn one, and some of the other really great superhero films. So yeah, go out and see it. If you love comic books, if you love superhero films, if you love character-driven films, this is the film for you. I'm definitely going to see the film again in theaters. Oh, I saw it in IMAX. Highly suggest you do that as well. Now, if you found that review interesting and or informative, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Also, please share this video. And if there are other films you want me to review on this channel, please leave those in the comment section below. Thank you for your time and have a wonderful rest of your day.